Hey guys, welcome back to Hear Our Voices. This is the host, as you know, Kate did. Thank you for coming this week, guys. I see and hear you guys. The numbers are running up on all the platforms, and I thank you for following us. Thank you for being a part of our family. We're trying to grow. So if you know a friend of a friend of a friend, if you know your friend Suzette, John, or Jack, Karen, I don't care who it is. Make them join the family of Hear Our Voices and come on down. They might learn a little, a little thing or two about homelessness, about welfare. We talk about a lot of different topics on the Hear Our Voices podcast, and we want to get bigger and better. You know that every month we have a little extra stuff we put in there, the hot topics. Now we also do our 4 full episodes a month, so that's 5 just for me. I'm just saying, I'm doing a lot over here, so you gotta follow me and join the family. We do a lot of things on all our social media platforms. We do an Instagram, we do TikTok, we do what else is there? YouTube, all those things. We definitely have that there, right, guys? It'll be down below in the link below, as you know, the link tree. And also, I can't forget this. We have our resource packet that we worked on. Me, my group, my team. We worked on this for a while. We try our best to update. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. We don't update as much as we need to, but we do update the resource packet when we can to make sure that you can have the resources that you need. Guys who are listening to me in other countries and other states, I'm sorry. We are based in the USA, but we're very small and we're located in New York. So right now, until we get, big, we can only have resources for New York City. I'm sorry. Don't kill the messenger. I'm just saying our team is like 5 people. Technically, it's probably 5 to 8 people, depending on the day. So to do every state that we have is just honestly impossible for our small team. When we get bigger and have the things that we need, the funding and stuff like that, we can do more for you. But right now, we're doing it for New York City. I'm sorry. But if you want to be a person to kind of help us out and help us teach us more and things like that, definitely come on and join our party. And we'd love to take any advice that you have to help us be bigger and better. And also be able to get more stories and also be able to share more resources because people just don't know that there's help out there. People don't know that they're struggling and it's okay. And that if they just get the tools to help them, they won't be there forever. So we love to be that resource for people in general, families in general, to be able to be successful in life and not always be down and be up. Because at the end of the day, most of the times families have young children, and the children are our future, as we say. So we make sure that the children have the best lives that they can have. So thank you guys. So we have a guest today. I love having, well, all my podcasts have guests, really, right? I love talking to them. I like to hear their story. I try my best not to hear the stories beforehand. I want to be just a part of the party like you are. I like to hear all the tea, just like everybody else, and to hear how they became from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. Because I think people think that homelessness is only a part of our story. No, the person's not only, that's not their whole life about it, right? It's only a small part, and they become bigger and better and ever after that. So we love to share their stories. We like to hear what their experience were, and we love to encourage each other, hearing that if they could go through it, I could definitely get through it. So thank you for coming here. Sit back and relax. Get some popcorn. Get a drink on the side. A little water because it's good to stay hydrated. I'm just saying. Might have thought something else. I feel you. I think you heard something that I heard, but I didn't say it. But yes, guys, thank you for coming and hopefully you come next week too. Don't still only come this one episode. I'm just saying. But anyway, so Stephanie, thank you for coming to the podcast. Thank you for giving us your presence and thank you for sharing your story. I didn't hear all of it yet, but thank you for sharing your story, what you're going to be coming up in the future. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you were before everything started happening in your life?
Um, well, I am a two-time survivor
Okay.
of DV.
Didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It sounds, I know it sounds weird, but some people don't make it out with their life. So I'm saying congratulations that you made it out and you made it
Right.
through to the other side. So
I made it out. DV has been a part of my life since I was a child, though. So I guess you could probably say it's a three-time survivor. Um, but it you have to kind of you understand life in retrospect, right? And when you're in the present and you look back and it helps you understand why you're here and how. And it's great to reflect, to gain self-awareness and all these funny things. And um yeah, my mother was in an abusive relationship,
Mm,
and my stepfather, it's interesting, the things you learn. um a lot of survivors also have a history of domestic violence, and a problem is that a lot of bad behavior is normalized
right,
in our lives. So we do settle for crumbs of affection. We do, um, based on our upbringing, we date emotionally unavailable people.
right,
Um, so I understand myself more as an individual now. So, I can understand the why behind it. I understand the consequences of my choices. I and I'm in a good place. I'm in a good place. I don't always believe in being forged in the fire. Like, I don't feel like you have to really go through it to really get something good, or but my experiences have really brought me to where I am now
right,
in you know many aspects. I'm able to speak about my story in a way that inspires others. Um, and that's a big part of it, because a lot of people aren't in that place where they can use their voices.
right.
Um, it's not easy,
It's sure
you
not.
know. A lot of people are still in, active crisis. Even those who aren't in crisis, there is a lot of coercive control, even post separation, um, especially if the survivor has children with her abuser, because you get into a tricky situation, um, involving family court and forensic psychologists, and you get thrown terms like parental alienation, and ACS becomes a visitor sometimes, and it's just
Right,
a lot of systems interacting, and not necessarily, I mean, the systems that are put in place to protect us are
right.
oftentimes weaponized,
It's true.
right? This. Even with homelessness, it's criminalized in many ways. Like, there's a fight against homelessness. And you notice it as you walk around a city. Like, there used to be benches, like they're anti-homeless benches now. They're benches that have literal protrusions where you can't even sit or lay
Right,
down to rest. It's like metal sticking out in like weird places, and
right,
so it's all these different measures um that are put in place to protect us, that cause re-trauma
right,
and re-victimization. And a big part of that is family court, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. But I could go back. you know I'm 41 years old right now, and I have a 22-year-old son. I used to call him a man child, but he's coming to his own,
That's good.
and I had friends who would tell me that, just give it some time,
Right,
you know he'll get there. You're his mom, like relax. But I couldn't relax. Like I'm literally a black woman in America raising a black child, male
Right, right.
son. And it's a whole different
Ball game.
yeah, it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different case of fears. And while you don't want to project your fears on them and like, send that out into the atmosphere, into the universe, right? The reality is like we're an endangered species. So, you know, but like those years from maybe 15 through 17, 18, 19, I felt like I was going to kill him in his sleep. Like I would like literally go to this boy's bedroom and just watch him sleep. Be like, yo, I'm so mad at him, but I love him so much. And my
Thing.
heart is swelling. And it literally hurts how much you love them.
That's the
Like
problem.
you
That's what
feel
hurts you the most, though. It's because you
that
love them so much.
in your heart. Like you look at them and it just wells up inside of you. And it's not something that you could even put into words, like
Right.
how you feel sometimes when you look at them. And then it was that fighting with the control. Like I know he's gonna ruin his life, and you know what I mean. So I had to learn to let go.
Right.
Right, I had to learn to understand that. Listen, you did what you could, right, and even in survival mode. Because like one of the hardest things I had to do was like parent, while my heart was breaking,
Artists.
like while I had, like the responsiveness of your parenting is impacted by so many things.
It's true.
And um not to say like, well, why did you have children? Because there are those people too, like, why
Mm,
it's not a matter, like two things can be true at once.
that's true.
Like it sucks, it can suck, and then there's also the beauty of it, because when a baby smiles at you at 3 o'clock in the morning, even though you woke up to feed them and you're tired, and it's one of the most beautiful things. Like it's literally, so it, it was difficult because he was living in Jamaica, and I filed for
Mm-hmm.
him and brought him up, and this was 2012.
Right.
Now I go back to that time because my separation with my daughter's father
Mm-hmm.
happened around June of 2012.
Oh, wow.
And um my son's father and I, like I had my son when I was young, like we were both 18 years old, like, and I feel I grew up and he didn't, so we had a kid now, and like, there were things, I mean, I feel like, no, I don't know how many people really plan to have a child at 18. I didn't. Like it was fresh out of high school, and I was a little reckless, but I wanted my baby, and I had him. I went back to college, but his dad, you know, wasn't as mature as I would have hoped. I don't know. I'm older now, and I don't know what that was 20 something years ago.
Right.
But I can't have some sort of accountability without there's accountability and there's self-blame. Like I was literally a child who had a child. So
Right.
like, my mom was there the whole way, and I had the support of his mom, babysitting and all of that. So I went back to school, but then here I was going back to school, and what are you doing? So we did separate, and um my American citizenship came through. That was a whole other story because
Right.
my dad was born here,
Oh, wow.
Jamaica, by my grandmother, because this was like the late 70s, early 80s when Brooklyn was hot. and they were in
Right.
Bed-Stuy.
But we hot now. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's
Welcome
still
to the
hot.
Manhattan.
It's still hot. It's like, and it's weird because you have pockets of it.
Yeah.
Oh, like pockets that are really hot, and like
Right.
other parts that are just
Like,
gentrified.
yeah,
You know, um, places where you can bring your dog into the cafe. Like it's very interesting. But
it is.
um, back then, I know him and his brothers were dealing with a lot of racism, and it was just not very easy. And my grandmother, you know, I don't know. Like she was a hot girl. Like she was, yeah. So she shipped them.
Right.
So my dad, met my mom, and like Jamaica it's not really racist, but it's very classist. It's very
Colorist.
uptown, downtown, and
Yeah.
yeah. So my dad was this American kid living in Beverly Hills. Like Jamaica has a Beverly Hills, and that's where he lived. And my mom was from like, I don't know if you ever heard about Matthews Lane. So yeah, yeah. So they met, and because his uncle had a store downtown, and the rest is history. Her friends were friends with his friends, and but the long story short, like I didn't know, like I knew my dad was an American citizen, whatever, but I didn't know what that would mean for me immigration wise. So
Right.
2008, my son is like 6, 7 years old. I go to the embassy because I wanted a visitor's visa just to sort of figure out what's going on. And like, they're like, come back the next day when citizen services are open. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I call out of work the next day and I go there, and um the lady's like, so it's been 19 years. Where were you? And I don't know what you mean, lady. And she's like, well, in 1988, your father tried to have your citizenship recognized, 1989 March, and we didn't hear back from him. So she turns the computer, she's like showing me this paperwork from 20 years ago,
Right.
and she's like, yeah. So I said, well, he died. He died that August. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why you didn't hear back from him. And she's like, well, you can finish the paperwork. And so I did. They requested a lot of paperwork. I did a
Of
DNA
course.
test with my grandparents, his parents. They call it a grandparent study. Like,
I'm
I
so
never
that's
much
weird because if
requested.
he filed for you and that's yeah, why we have to do extra steps to even get
Yeah,
that?
because we didn't get to that point where they were sure he was my dad. I feel like when it's your mother,
It's easier.
they can't, but if with your dad, they have to test you, and I don't know, get paternity established or whatever. And my mom and him weren't married, and
That's
I
yeah.
believe he had signed my birth certificate like 3 years after my birth too. So it was, and then he died, so I couldn't do the test with him. So I did it with his parents, who are still alive. It was very complicated. The lab sent my grandfather's kit to him in Florida. My grandmother was in New York. I was in Jamaica. She flew down. We did her test together. But the end of it, I got my American passport and I came up to the States. So, you know, um, it was a little bit after I moved here, I met my daughter's father. Now, by this time, my son's father and I had sort of an amicable relationship.
I have a question because this has
Yeah.
nothing to do with this part though, guys. I'm so sorry because
Oh,
you said domestic violence when you were younger because you said 3 times survivor. I want to hear that part. And do you
yeah.
think that has anything to do with your background? Because I'm also Jamaican, and I've seen a lot of domestic violence.
Oh,
Like
definitely.
they don't call it domestic violence either. They don't acknowledge it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, do you think it's a cultural thing?
It
Why?
definitely, it definitely is. That's one of the things that I want to do in the future is to provide like a shelter, like a real shelter system for survivors in Jamaica.
Mm,
Um, because it's not,
It's gonna be
It's not
hard.
culturally
It's
recognized
not.
as the issue that it
Hmm.
is, the problem that it is. Um, I've heard women, so let's go back, right? To me being 12 years old and seeing a guy kick his girlfriend over the rail.
Mm.
Like, you know, in Jamaica, you
Oh
would have like
God.
a veranda, kind of, they call it like a porch
Yeah.
here, you know, and
On the
you
veranda, like
sit,
kind of thing. I
yeah,
think
and
I
then you
know.
have
Yeah.
like three steps leading down to
Yeah.
like, yeah. So he kicked her over the side. So that like, so it's down the length of those three steps.
Right.
And then he runs down the steps and she's in a corner and he starts kicking her. And it was just really vicious, you
Right.
know? And he was younger than her. And she
Mhm.
had two daughters too. And like they were seeing three daughters and they were seeing this. And I
Mhm.
was seeing this. And at the
Right.
time, like my stepdad was just I don't know, he was crazy. Like I feel like he was undiagnosed bipolar or something
It's
like that
possible
because
too. We have
yeah,
a problem
because
with that down here
mental health
too.
in our community is another thing that is just not discussed,
Yeah. And that's the
right?
problem. Yeah.
If you're mad, like if you're mad, you're mad. Like people,
Exactly.
you know, but
There's
like
no fixings, but
no,
it could be get
right.
helped, you know.
There's not a lot of help to you know, and first of all, like you have to feel comfortable enough to even communicate that you're feeling some type of way.
Right.
If you don't have that space, like where do you even how do you even make that first step, right?
Right.
Um, but back to the guy that was beating the girl, and like a day after or something, like her wrist was broken, and you know,
Mm,
she was like just cussing one day. I don't know if somebody said something to her,
right.
but then or if it was just her in you know projecting. And she basically said, I remember this. She was like, if you don't get beaten when you're young, you're gonna get beaten when you're old.
Thank you for coming back to hear our voices this week again. Thank you for being amazing, guys. Thank you for just listening and taking in the story and seeing how this can make a difference in your life or somebody's life around you. Don't take these stories as just stories. Take it as an experience that you can learn from and also teach somebody about. And also, if you're a person who can make a difference in the systems that we have. Our systems are broken. They need a lot of help. And if we come together as one, we could definitely make a difference. Thank you, and come back next week to hear the rest of Stephanie's story. Bye. And not before that, sorry. Follow us on social media, please. We're trying to grow a community over there. And I think we can do it. Later.